everyone, it's Kai from Keizer CDC, and welcome to another video of Up for Comparison. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at this knife, the Protech Drop Ferrum Forge Mordax, and we'll be comparing it against this knife, a lesser known button lock named the CRKT Tigherade. As you guys can see, there are some similarities in the way both of these function. Without further ado, let's get on to the specs. In terms of specs, we'll be looking at a 3.6 inch CPM 20CV blade on the Protech Mordax, functioning on a button lock with bearings, with aluminum handles which have been anodized blue. We'll be also looking at a deep carry pocket clip and a clamshell style back. This is a very smooth knife running on a button lock. As you guys can see, it drops shut. On the other hand, we'll be taking a look at the CRKT Tigherade, which has a 3.38 inch blade length and a 7.78 inch overall size in the hand. If we put them side by side, as you can see, the Mordax is just a tiny bit bigger, but it's because it's further away from the camera. It does look about the same size. There is, however, a size difference. For size comparison, as usual, we'll be having a Pilot G2. We will also be looking at a Kaiser Feist. So as you guys can see, not a super small knife. However, it does fit quite well in the hand. Both of these knives are very comfortable to use as full-size carry knives. In terms of finish, we'll be looking at a flat saber ground stonewash CPM 20CV blade on the Mordax. This does make it a bit chunkier when it's cutting. It's not the thinnest thing behind the edge. It doesn't slice as well as other knives should, but it is, however, fine for its intended purposes. The CRKT Tigherade is a dual compound ground 8CR13 MOV blade, and this one in particular is a Blade Show 2015 exclusive, which is what makes it quite special. Let's talk about similarities. Both of these knives are button locks, firstly. That's the most obvious thing. As you can see, both of them drop shut. However, the similarities don't just end there. Both of them are aluminum handles. This one has a milled gray anodized aluminum handle, while the Mordax has a blue anodized with dye, kind of almost powder coat chalky feel to it kind of finish, and that does make it quite nice in hand. Both of these do feel quite nice in hand. However, the Tigherade is a bit heavier due to the fact that the aluminum scales aren't actually the whole handle. They're actually just overlays on top of steel handles, as you guys can see, and there's actually quite a bit of corrosion on the inside of the liners. You can see where it goes from aluminum to steel. What are some unique features of both of these knives? Well, both of them are made of aluminum, as said before. This makes them lighter than steel or titanium, which means that they will be easier and nicer to carry. Just a tiny bit compared to steel. They won't weigh your pants down. They're both lightweight carries, however, as said before, again, the Tigherade is slightly heavier. The Mordax is quite a bit lighter, even though there's minimal chamfering and lightening pockets down on the inside. It does feel quite nice despite being a full-size carry and even larger than the Tigherade. What makes both of these knives different? Well, we'll be looking at materials firstly. Even though both of them have the same scale materials, the blade, as said before, CPM 20 CV on the Mordax, which makes it a more premium offering. So this provides more corrosion resistance, and it is also more, I should say, it allows it to be a bit sharper and also holds an edge quite a bit longer as well compared to 8CR13 MOV, as shown here. One of the other things that make these two knives quite interesting is the fact that this does have a very plain, very thick kind of grind to it out of factory, while the CRKT Tigherade has a crazy dual compound finish, which, while it looks cool, it doesn't really have much benefit in terms of cutting, because I can feel a very big burr on this side of the blade after the transition. They do call this a fine edge, and they call this a coarse or rough edge. I'm not sure what the point of that was, because all this does is weakens the cutting ability of the knife overall. Even though it does look cool, definitely, this would be probably a nightmare to sharpen, honestly, because of the way that the bevel goes from really thin to really thick up here. But that's just my opinion. And both of these are very smooth button locks as well. What detracts from both of them, however, is the fact that both of them have just a tiny bit of button stick. Less so on this one, I'm not sure why, but it just feels a bit better when you close it compared to the mordax, where if you flip it hard, there is just a tiny bit of resistance when you push the button down. That could be a design feature because they don't want you to accidentally press it while it's open. However, I'm not too sure on that. Another cool thing you can do with both of these is the fact that you can let them swing shut and swing open. Kind of like a gravity knife, but those aren't legal where I am. And this isn't a gravity knife due to the fact that there's a button lock in place, so it's not just freely swinging. There is a locking mechanism on both of these. There is some significance as well for both of these in terms of knife making, because the Protech mordax was probably one of the first flipper button locks available to mass consumers earlier in 2019. It was open to the production market and was a fairly good seller, in the market, due to the fact that there weren't really many other offerings on the production market around that price point with a button lock flipper. It is just something different. The Tigherade, on the other hand, in 2015 when it released, was interesting during Blade Show 2015 due to the fact that it was one of the first production knives with a button lock, thumb studs, and flippers all at the same time. It was quite interesting during that period of time, which does give it some, I guess, historical significance. Before this, the only other flipper button lock companies were probably William Henry, Rod Olson, and maybe a Protech Cambria as well. This did sprout into the Protech Malibu for the Protech mordax, where it became one of the hottest sellers of 2020 and was quite well received. The button locks made by Protech are really well done. One more difference between these two knives would be the country of origin. The Protech mordax is made by Protech in the United States, while the Tigherade, while under CRKT, which is a US company in name, it's actually manufactured in China, as seen by the Chinese HCR13 MOV blade, and the tolerances are definitely not as good. We can see, while this is a simple blue anodized handle, it is very smooth to the touch and it's very nice in hand, while on the other hand, the Tigherade does feel a bit rough despite having all this crazy milling. If you look closely at the milling, there is some burrs and it's just kind of uncomfortable to hold in the hand sometimes. Another difference would be the fact that the way you hold it in hand. If you look at a budget knife, a lot of the time they tell you how they want you to hold it in hand. As you guys can see, there's a really distinct groove, and then there's like a palm swell, if you can call it there, to put your palm there, and it doesn't feel very comfortable because my hands are slightly larger than the knife is meant for, so it doesn't fit very well in the hand. While on a more premium offering, they don't really tell you what to do. They allow you a lot of options where they just have simple kind of suggestions where you should put your hand. You don't really have to. So in terms of hand comfort and ergonomics, the Protech mordax is definitely a better knife in my opinion. And more importantly, the way to carry in the pocket. As you guys can see here, we have a deep carry pocket clip on the Protech mordax, while we have a 3-hole kind of low riding carry clip on the Tigherade. Thoughts. What do I think about both of these knives? I think they're both nice, fidgety knives for everyday carry. I do really like the mordax. I got this second hand and I got the Tigherade full price a few years ago, probably in 2017 or 2018. This is one of the lesser known models in CRKT's lineup. There we go, camera focus. It's one of the lesser known knives in CRKT's lineup, and it's not very well known for, I guess, decent reason. It's not a very well finished knife, however, it is fidgety. I would recommend it as like probably a gift knife or a budget knife for someone you like who doesn't like your casual liner or frame locks. A button lock is fun and it's very smooth as well, so it's definitely more fidgety. However, in terms of work and use, I do find myself picking up the Protech mordax a lot more because it does just fit better in hand. It's more comfortable, the steel doesn't dull as fast, and it's just overall a nicer knife to carry, and it's more well finished. It's just a tiny bit smoother as well because it's running on cage bearings and a washer system as well. I haven't disassembled this one, but you're gonna have to take my word for it. It is just comfortable and it does fall shut just like nothing. And it's a really fun knife to play with. Comparing the prices of both of these knives, the Protech mordax retails for about $250 US, I want to say, while the Tigherade is retailing for about $70 US. I would not pick up either of these knives for full price. However, it is quite hard to find the CRKT Tigherade on secondary market. They typically go for about $35 or $40, which is not a bad price, but it's probably due to the fact that CRKTs don't really hold their value well. The Protech mordax, on the other hand, is a very easy knife to find on secondary. It's a very nice smooth knife that I think a lot of people don't really like because of the grind, and it's just a bit too thick, and some people see it more as a toy rather than a tool, and that's one of the main issues. And you can probably find them popping up in secondary for about, I don't know, maybe 180, maybe almost $200 US, which I wouldn't say is a far stretch. It's quite a good knife for that price. I wouldn't pay full price for either of these, however. So with that said, those are my final conclusions, and I would suggest that if you're looking for a budget option and you just want to try a fun, smooth action, more of a toy without actually using or sharpening your knife, the Tigherade will be my suggestion. If you're looking for a harder user which can take abuse and probably has a nicer edge on it as well, I would go with the Protech mordax. However, do keep in mind this is a bit thick and it might not always suit your use case, but to each their own. It really depends what you're cutting. This does bunch up quite a bit. So those are my final thoughts, and as always, I hope you found this comparison video insightful, and as always, stay tuned. There'll be more to come. Take care.